Hey guys, so welcome. Today we are going to solve Leetcode problem number 3, longest substring without repeating characters. And as before, I will be solving this problem live, and this is the first time I'm seeing the problem. So the problem statement is as follows. Given a string, find the length of the longest substring without repeating characters. Okay. So for this problem, we have to find the length of the longest substring without repeating characters. So let's say we have something like this: ABC, ABC, BB. In this case, the longest substring is ABC, which is the size of 3. And this substring does not have any repeating character. For this example, the output is 1. For this example, the output is 3. Okay, so let's quickly break the problem down. So let's define our input. So we are getting some string, let's call it S. Output integer, let's call it out, which is the length of longest substring without repeating chars, right? Okay, so now the question becomes, let's think about any assumptions that we may have to make. Assumptions? Okay, so are there any limits to what type of characters we can get? Meaning that can it be integers? Can there be numbers within the string? Will there be capitalized characters? And all that, right? So we'll just assume any characters can be present. Numbers, capitalized. Let's see, unless there's a note in here. Yeah, I don't see any notes here, so assuming any characters can be present, numbers, capitalized, char, symbols. Okay. What about empty string, right? What if we get empty string? So I'm assuming that will return 0. Whenever we get empty string, we just return 0. Okay. So let's talk about approaches. So what are some of the approaches that we can consider for solving this problem, right? Off the top of my head, let's see, I think okay, well, so let's first come up with a brute force solution. So let's say this is a brute force approach. Essentially what we can do in a brute force manner here is to simply, let's see, okay, so what we could do is we can have some sort of sliding window. Okay, so sliding window, and essentially what that will do is, okay, let's call it sliding set, right? And whenever we are encountering any repeating character, we'll remove the first character here. We'll, in a sense, let's see, what can we do? Can we do that? So let's say I'm sliding from left to right here. I store, okay, so let's say we have a sliding set, right? So we start from the first index, we see A here, right? So we put that into our set, we update, we also, as we are sliding to the array, we have to also update current max substring, right? So we also do that at the same time. So let's say we see a current max substring is of length 1. Now we see B, and then we see C, right? So now when we get to this point, our current max substring size is 3. Okay, so now when we get to the same character, in this case which is A, what we can do here is interesting. So ideally what we would want to do in this case is remove the first character. Let's see. Can we do that? Okay, maybe a set wouldn't work for us in this case. Because, okay, so actually, we'll need both, right? We'll need sliding set as well as sliding DQ, meaning that we'll be removing the front of the queue and as well as adding to the end of the queue, right? And removing and insert will be O of constant, right? Because DQs are typically implemented with a linked list. Okay, so we'll have both. We'll use a sliding set to sort of tell us if current substring, let's call it current window, is unique, right? So that will tell us if current window is unique. And let's see. Okay. And whenever we encounter repeated character, we will remove from front of the queue until that character is removed. So we'll continually popping from the front of the queue. So let's say we encounter A here, we'll keep popping from the front until we see an A, and that's when we'll know that we have eliminated that repeating character previously, right? That we had stored previously within the queue. Okay, so now so why does that work, you might be wondering. Let's see. Intuitively, at all times as we are sliding the window over the substring, we are maintaining a unique substring, right? And whenever we encounter something that we have already seen, what we would want to do is we want to continually removing the front of the queue until we hit that repeating character, right? And that works because you know, there are no other longer substring, right? If A, let's say So let's say we have something like this, right? So let's say, so what I'm trying to answer here is, let's say we have some substring here, right? And we get to this A, right? And you might be wondering, if we were to remove all of this prefix here before hitting this A, would we be losing any maximum substring size? And the answer to that is no, because with A being in here, we can no longer grow, right? So the only option for us from this point forward is we have to keep popping the front of the queue until we see that repeating character, so that we can start growing from here, right? I hope that makes sense. So if you guys have any questions about what I just said, please comment below, or you can DM me directly. Okay, so now let's think about the runtime of this approach. Because we are sliding the window from left to right, we are seeing each character one time, and let's see, and at most, the worst case for popping the front of the queue, so let's say all of the characters are unique until the end character, right? The worst case for popping will be also O of n. So we can safely assume that this approach, so maybe it's not so brute force anymore, right? So maybe this approach is around O of n 2n times, where one of the ends is for us traversing from left to right, and the other ends is for us when we have to pop. The worst case pop is when we have to pop from the end of the list, right? We are popping all the way. So that's around 2n in terms of times complexity, and space will also be O of n because we are maintaining a set as well as a DQ. So I think this approach is pretty optimal. Okay, so let me rephrase what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to iterate from left to right. At the same time, I will be updating a sliding set and sliding DQ, and we'll be using the sliding set to tell us if the current window is unique, right? And for each iteration, we'll also be updating current max substring size, and we can get that size by simply calling get some sort of size of our current DQ, for example. And whenever we encounter repeated character that we have seen previously, we will remove the front of the queue until that character is removed. So I hope that makes sense. So let's try to implement the algorithm here. So the first thing that I need to do is import DQ. So in Python, we can import DQ from our collections module, and we'll initialize it. And now we also have to maintain a set, which we'll use to tell us if the current DQ is unique or not. Okay, so now all that we have to do is simply traverse from left to right of this string. So we'll do let's see. We should also initialize our max. Let's call it max res or max result essentially. So we'll initialize it to 0, and we'll return that at the end here. And we'll be updating this variable in each iteration. So now we are going to iterate to the string, so we can do for C in S. So for each character in the string, the first thing we'll do is let's see, if for whatever reason this C is in unique, okay, let's call it scene. That's a better name. So if we have seen it before, then we will let's see, so we do pop left, meaning we'll pop in the front of the DQ. So what we'll do here is while k, let's see, it's not equals to C. Actually, let's do that here. We'll initialize k to none for now, initially. And DQ, and we'll also be updating our set by removing whatever we remove from our DQ. Let's see. Okay, so that's that. Else, okay, so once we updated our DQ, we will then store this new character into our DQ. We put it in the back of the DQ as well as updating our set with the character, right? So I hope that makes sense. And at the same time, we also have to update our max result, and we'll do something like this. We'll call max function, which will return the greater value between the two variable, right, and we'll call length of DQ, and that should be it. Okay, so essentially what I'm doing here is, the first thing that I'm doing is I'm updating DQ, right, and set by removing repeated character, add character to DQ and set, and finally we'll update max result, and finally we'll return at the end. So let's see if this code works, and voila, let's see if it works with some auto inputs just to be safe. We'll also pass in an empty string, and let's see if that works. Okay, any difference? Seems like the code works pretty well for these test cases. I'm pretty happy with it, so I'm going to try to submit it, and it works. Okay, thank you for watching. I hope this helps, and see you guys next time.